Every year, the senator named Mr. Dlamini and his wife, Madame Ginica, would extend her hand to charity organizations, offering scholarships to young women. Their generosity was unmatched. It was said to be an act of goodwill, a chance for these bright souls to escape the hardships of their upbringing and rise to the heights of success. Some saw it as divine intervention, a blessing. Others, silent and wary, whispered questions they dared not ask aloud. Ayanda was one of the chosen 10 that year. She had just turned 18, her birthday marked by a modest gathering in her mother's tiny home. The letter arrived like a divine decree. She had been selected, given an opportunity to study abroad. Her mother wept with joy. Her neighbors sang praises. "It is fate," an elder told her, gripping her hands tightly. "You will bring honor to your family. Make us proud, my daughter." And so, preparations began. She packed, filling her suitcase with clothes, notebooks, and the dreams she had nurtured for so long. The evening before her departure, all the girls were invited to the senator's grand estate for a formal gathering, an evening of introductions and farewells. The mansion loomed above the city like a silent watchman, its gates opening slowly to receive its guests. Ayanda stepped inside, her heart pounding with excitement. The hall was filled with laughter and music, but beneath the surface there was something else. Madame Ginica embraced Ayanda and the other girls warmly, her perfume thick with jasmine and something unfamiliar. The senator himself stood beside her, his smile practiced and perfect. The girls buzzed with excitement, their eyes wide with possibility as they stood in front of the gathering. "You have a bright future ahead," the senator said, his gaze unwavering. "Make us proud." With that, the celebration came to an end, and the girls were ushered into a sleek black bus that rolled through the winding roads of the city. Their new temporary home awaited, a grand house secluded from the bustling streets, where they would stay while their visas were prepared. Ayanda quickly formed a bond with a girl her age, Ezeki. Their friendship grew in stolen moments, whispered dreams about the new world they would soon enter, imagining their futures far from home. The house was comfortable, but there was an eerie quiet to it, as though something unseen lurked beneath the surface. Days passed, and finally, the much-anticipated moment arrived. Their passports and visas were ready. Excitement bubbled in the air as each girl was handed her travel documents. Ayanda's hands trembled as she opened her passport, eager to see the stamp of approval. Then her breath caught. Name was wrong. Instead of Ayanda, the passport bore the name Yanda. She frowned, flipping the pages. "Excuse me," she said, her voice hesitant as she addressed the woman handing out the passports. "I think there's a mistake. My name is spelled wrong. They missed the A." Before the woman could respond, Ezeki spoke up, her voice equally confused. "Mine too. They removed the E." The woman's expression hardened instantly. Her eyes narrowed as she snapped, "Will you keep quiet?" The room fell into an uneasy silence. "Yes, we know names have been changed," the woman continued, her voice cold and final. "For security reasons." Ayanda and Ezeki exchanged wide-eyed glances, the thrill of departure quickly dissolving into fear. "Security reasons," Ezeki echoed, confusion etched deep in her face. But the woman turned away, leaving no room for further questions. A heavy unease settled over the group. They were chosen, given a golden opportunity, but now uncertainty clawed at their hearts. What did security mean? Who are we being protected from? They asked, but no one had an answer. As others barely glanced at their documents, what did a missing letter matter when they were about to leave everything behind? Some of the girls furrowed their brows, flipping through the pages in confusion. But Ayanda, now Yanda, and Ezeki, now Zichi, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Their names had been changed, stripped of their original form without warning or explanation. The forced alteration felt less like an error and more like an erasure, a quiet transformation they had no say in. Still, the thrill of departure dulled any lingering worries for some. They clutched their passports, their eyes locked on the future. Opportunity. a new life beyond borders. What did it matter if their names were different? A woman in a crisp suit clapped her hands for attention. You will be boarding tomorrow. Dinner will be served shortly. Pack your things. You leave in the morning. That night, the dining hall shimmered with golden light, the tables overflowing with delicacies. Spiced meats, steaming rice, pastries soaked in syrup. It was a feast fit for royalty, a final farewell before their journey began. Laughter mixed with the clinking of glasses, excitement outweighing the tension, at least for now. Midway through the meal, Madame Ginica rose from her seat, lifting her glass with a practiced smile. You were all chosen for a reason, she said, her voice smooth, deliberate. Tomorrow morning you will fly out of the country. You will travel in pairs. She began to call out the names, each pair assigned to a different destination, some to England, others to the United States, Australia and France. Then, finally, Ayanda and Ezeki, you will be going to Brazil. Ezeki grinned, nudging Ayanda. Despite the uncertainty, the unease, they were relieved to be paired together. Whatever lay ahead, at least they would face it side by side. The night ended with murmurs of excitement and half-packed suitcases. Yet, beneath the surface, hidden beneath the gilded promises and overflowing plates, the questions remained unanswered. Who were they becoming? And why had their identities been rewritten? The morning came, and the women boarded their flights, each destined for a new country, a new life. When Ayanda and Ezeki arrived in Brazil, at the airport a man waited for them, a driver holding a small sign with their altered names. Without a word, he gestured for them to follow. They climbed into the car, the hum of the engine filling the silence as they pulled away from the bustling terminal. Something felt off. Ayanda's stomach twisted as she stared out of the window. Why aren't we going to the university? She murmured. Why are we being taken to a hotel? Ezeki frowned, turning to the driver. Excuse me, sir, are we going to the university? The man barely spared her a glance. He didn't speak English, only gripping a wrinkled piece of paper with their names. Ezeki leaned back, exhaling slowly. Maybe we'll get answers later, she mumbled, but even as the words left her lips, doubt lingered. The car came to a stop in front of a tall, luxurious hotel. They were ushered inside, their bags carried by uniformed staff. Hours passed in quiet anticipation until the phone in their room rang. Ayanda picked it up, a crisp voice greeting her in Portuguese.
Boa noite, senhora. Seu motorista virá buscá-la amanhã de manhã.
She swallowed, switching the phone to speaker so Ezeki could hear. The receptionist's words were clear, but the meaning was unsettling. Ma'am, your driver will be collecting you tomorrow morning. Ezeki met Ayanda's gaze, uncertainty flickering between them. Tomorrow. But where were they going? The morning air was crisp as Ayanda and Ezeki climbed into the car, expecting to finally see the university that had promised them a new beginning. But as the cityscape melted away behind them, excitement turned to unease. The road stretched longer than they should have, leading them far from the towering buildings, from the hum of life. Soon there were no landmarks, no familiar signs of civilization, only endless trees flanking a narrow road. Ezeki shifted beside Ayanda, glancing back toward the shrinking city. Something's not right, she murmured. Then it appeared, a tall iron gate stretching high, locked in secrecy. It swung open without a word, the car rolling forward. The driveway was lined with trees, casting shadows that swallowed the road ahead. And then they saw it. A grand mansion stood at the heart of the estate, its towering walls pristine yet ominous. Armed guards were stationed at every corner, their eyes vacant but alert, watching without expression. The car stopped, and as they stepped out, confusion settled thickly in the air. A Brazilian woman, dressed in elegant attire, greeted them with a practiced smile. Bom dias, she said, her voice smooth and inviting. Welcome to your new home. Home. Ayanda felt a chill crawl down her spine. This wasn't right. Universities didn't have estates hidden deep in the countryside and didn't have guards as way. Glasses of cool drinks were placed in their hands. They exchanged hesitant glances, but as they lifted the glasses to their lips, the exhaustion from travel clouded their judgment. The world tilted. Their limbs grew heavy, their surroundings blurring at the edges. Darkness swallowed them whole. Then there was silence. As days passed, Ayanda woke up. Her scream tore through the sterile air as she jolted awake, hands grasping blindly for something, anything familiar. White walls, fluorescent lights, the hum of machinery. She wasn't in a hotel. She wasn't in university. She was in the hospital. Her breath hitched. She turned wildly, scanning the room. Other women surrounded her, some awake, some motionless. None looked at ease. Her voice called out, "Ezeki? Ezeki." She tried to move, but her limbs were weak, her body sluggish. "What is this?" she choked out, panic clawing at her throat. "Where am I? I want to go home. Let me go, please." But no one answered. They had believed it was a miracle, a chance to rewrite their destinies. A new life, a new future. But now the cracks were showing. Had they ever truly made a choice? Or had they been led blindly into something far more sinister? Ayanda's voice cracked as she called again for Ezeki. Her words swallowed by the foreign hum of voices around her. No one answered. Every woman spoke in a different language, their murmurs blending into the sterile walls of the facility. Panic surged through her chest. "Ezeki!" She tried again, her voice raw. "Ezeki!" Silence. She struggled to sit up, but pain shot through her body, forcing her back down. That was when she saw it, a long scar tracing across her side, fresh and aching, as if something had been done to her. Her pulse pounded. "I need to get out of here," she whispered to herself, willing her breath to steady. Days blurred into weeks. The sun rose and fell behind thick curtains, and time became nothing but a concept. Some women adjusted, accepting whatever fate had handed them, but Ayanda couldn't. Not after what she learned. Maria, a woman with weary eyes and a hesitant grasp on English, took pity on her. Through whispered conversations, Ayanda pieced the truth together. Ezeki hadn't made it. The words hit her like stone, leaving no air in her lungs. The senator and his wife had lied. Their charity, their scholarships, their promises. It had all been a disguise for something darker, something beyond comprehension. "I have been here for 2 years, Maria confessed one night, in her Portuguese accent, her voice barely above a breath. "Escape is impossible. Security is everywhere." But Ayanda refused to accept that. She knew now that she had to learn the language, understand the routines, find the gaps in the system. If there was even the smallest chance of freedom, she would take it. She would escape. Back home, unease settled over the families like a quiet shadow. Weeks passed, then months, and yet none of the young women contacted their loved ones. Mothers whispered among themselves. Fathers paced. Brothers and sisters asked questions that had no answers. Still, Madame Ginica ensured that food and money arrived at their doorsteps, just enough to silence doubt, just enough to make them question their own unease. They must be busy adjusting, people told themselves. They're in a new country, a new life. The senator was a man of power, a man of generosity. Who dared to challenge his authority when he was the one ensuring that no one starved? The town's silence was his greatest shield. But secrets have a way of unraveling. Far from the whispers, in the home of a wealthy businessman, one of the senator's closest allies, a tragedy had struck. His daughter, Leona, had suffered from a rare heart condition, one that threatened her life. Then a miracle. A donor heart arrived just in time, and the surgery was successful. The family rejoiced, praising fate for their fortune. The senator himself congratulated them, assuring them that all would be well. But as the days passed, Leona began to change. At first, it was subtle, little shifts in the way she spoke, in the way she carried herself. Her sentences became sharper, filled with insights she had never expressed before. Her father, who had always admired her but never considered her particularly analytical, began to wonder. "Leona, how did you know that?" he asked one afternoon when she casually broke down a business strategy he had spent months refining. She blinked at him, confused by the question. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Her ability to grasp complex ideas was growing by the day. It was as though her mind had expanded, stretching beyond its previous limits. Then came the shift in her interests. Leona had never been one to sit through a football match, always preferring shopping trips and brunch dates over watching sports. But now, every evening, she found herself drawn to the television, analyzing plays, arguing strategies. Her partner was the first to call it out. "You hate football," he said one night, staring at her in disbelief. She glanced at him over the rim of her coffee mug, eyes alight with something unfamiliar. "I don't think I do," she said, gesturing toward the screen. "Look at that pass, beautiful execution," she replied. He frowned, watching her. "You never talk like that." The shift wasn't lost on her family either. The way she walked had changed. More decisive, more confident. She stood differently, occupied space differently. It was as though her body was hers, but something inside had adjusted. But perhaps the most unsettling change was her behavior toward those around her. Leona had never been kind to the staff at home or in her father's office. She rarely acknowledged them, treating their presence as insignificant, almost invisible. A simple thank you was never in her vocabulary. She expected service, not appreciation. Now she greeted them. She nodded when she passed, acknowledged their names, even smiled. At first, the house staff didn't know how to react. Was this a trick? Had she suffered some sort of enlightenment after the surgery? One afternoon, as a maid handed her a fresh cup of tea, Leona looked her directly in the eyes and said, "Thank you, Clara." The woman nearly dropped the cup. Clara had worked in the estate for years, and never once had Leona addressed her by name. Never once had she looked at her like a person. The whispers grew louder. "She's different. She's smarter. She's nicer. She's not the same Leona." It should have been a blessing, an unexpected transformation, a newfound depth, but there was something unnerving about it. Her personality had changed, as though pieces of her had been replaced, remolded into something else. And though no one dared to say it aloud, some wondered. Had the surgery given her more than just a heart? No one knew what was happening to Leona. The whispers began softly, threading through the dark corners of Leona's mind. At first, they were distant, a voice carried by the wind, an echo misplaced in time. But the more she ignored them, the closer they came. Started with the dreams. The woman appeared every night, standing just beyond the edges of Leona's vision. Her face blurred in shadows, her voice pleading, desperate. "I want to go back home. Take me back." Leona awoke gasping, her hands clutching the sheets, her skin damp with sweat. The dreams refused to fade. They lingered in the silence, haunting her long after she opened her eyes. Then the shadows came. She saw them in the corner of her room, flickering like a trick of the light. Black shapes moved unnaturally, stretching tall before vanishing just as quickly. But the worst part, the part that made her blood run cold, was the presence. It hovered just behind her, invisible yet suffocating. When she walked down the hallway, she felt it at her back. When she lay in bed, she sensed it hovering above her. Something was with her. One evening, as she stood before her mirror, brushing her hair, she froze. Her reflection, her own body, was not alone. Behind her, for the briefest second, stood the woman from her dreams. Leona screamed, stumbling backward, her breath ragged. The image was gone, yet the fear remained. She clutched her chest, feeling the steady pulse beneath her fingertips. A heart. A donor. She wasn't alone inside her own body. She had tried to ignore it, had told herself it was just the aftereffects of her surgery. But deep down she knew better. Something was wrong. One evening, as she sat by the grand window of her father's estate, her hands absent-mindedly tracing the faint scar on her chest, she decided she couldn't keep silent. "Dad," she said cautiously, watching his reaction. "Do you know anything about the heart I received?" Her father barely looked up from his newspaper. "You were lucky," he replied, his tone matter-of-fact. "A donor arrived just in time." Leona swallowed. But who was she? Her father sighed, folding the paper. Why do you think it's a she? Does it matter? Leona hesitated. How could she explain the nightmares? The voice. The overwhelming feeling that something had gone horribly wrong. I need to know, she pressed. Her father's eyes flickered with something, an emotion too quick to read. Then he stood retrieving his phone. You should speak to the senator, he said, dialing. He arranged everything. Leona's chest tightened as she listened to the ringing phone, her mind racing. If there were answers, they lay with him. And deep in her gut, she knew, whatever she uncovered would change everything. Leona's nights had turned into a battlefield. She woke gasping, drenched in sweat, her limbs aching as if she had been fighting something unseen in her sleep. But that night was different. As she pushed herself up from the tangled sheets, she froze, her arms were bruised. Deep, aching purples ran along her skin, trailing across her legs, her ribs. She staggered to the mirror, horror gripping her chest. Her whole body bore the marks of pain she couldn't remember. The nightmares had left their imprint. Her father noticed the changes almost immediately. Leona had lost weight, her once radiant complexion now pale and weary. At first, he thought it was stress, the toll of recovery, but when he finally called the doctors, they had no explanation. Her body was failing in ways no tests could diagnose. Leona's father paced the room, his fists clenched at his sides, his worry evolving into frustration. That morning the senator received a call from his friend. He could sense from his tone something was wrong. He sat in his private study, his fingers pressed against his temples, the weight of his own choices suffocating him. His friend, his closest ally, the man responsible for his rise to power, was pacing before him, desperation evident in every sharp movement. Tell me the truth, Leona's father demanded, his voice tight with barely contained fury. What is happening to my daughter? The senator exhaled slowly, choosing his words carefully. He owed this man everything, his status, his wealth, his influence. And yet, just when he thought he had done something good for him, just when he thought he had secured the survival of his only child, Leona was dying. I don't know, the senator lied, keeping his voice steady, controlled. His friend's jaw clenched. She's wasting away. Nightmares. Bruises appearing from nowhere. And she keeps hearing a voice, someone pleading for help. The senator felt his pulse quicken. He had heard stories before. Tales of donor hearts carrying more than just life, whispers of lingering souls, unsettled energy. But he had dismissed them as superstition. Now, faced with the undeniable truth of Leona's decline, the weight of his secrets pressed heavier. You swore to me this was a safe procedure, his friend continued, his voice thick with frustration. I trusted you. I believed you were giving my daughter a second chance. Instead you've... He stopped himself, breathing hard, fists clenched at his sides. Instead you had doomed her. The senator exhaled slowly, measuring his words. Recovery takes time. It's more than that. It's the heart, I know it is. She keeps asking about the donor. She sees someone. The senator's grip tightened around his glass. Across from him, the senator sat with carefully measured calm, though his fingers twitched against the armrest of his chair. He could feel the tension, the growing pressure that threatened to tip everything over. She's adjusting, the senator replied smoothly. Don't lie to me, his friend snapped, his voice sharp with desperation. I see the way she moves, the way she talks. She's not just different, she's someone else. The senator exhaled slowly. He had rehearsed every possible explanation, every excuse. It's psychological. Sometimes patience. No. Leona's father cut him off. His eyes burned with suspicion. It's the donor, isn't it? The senator held his breath for a fraction too long. He then said, We'll figure it out, the senator finally said, standing. I promise you, I'll do everything in my power. His friend eyed him, suspicion darkening his features. For your sake, he said slowly. I hope that's true. The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken threats. He knew the truth. The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken threats. He knew the truth. He knew exactly where that heart had come from. But how could he admit it? How could he tell his friend that his daughter was tethered to something dark, something that should have stayed buried? I suggest she sees another doctor, maybe overseas. They might diagnose her. Let's see, I will call this doctor tomorrow morning. The senator had built his world on control, on power, on silence, on carefully measured moves. But now the cracks were forming. And if he wasn't careful, the truth would break free. Let me go. Let's talk in the morning. Before dawn, Leona's father made his decision. Without telling the senator. That evening, Leona sat in front of a reverend pastor, her father watching anxiously from the side. The old man studied her, eyes filled with knowing, like he had already seen cases like hers before. Finally he spoke. The soul of the owner of the heart is not at peace, he said. His voice was calm, but his words carried weight. The soul needs to rest before she can have peace with her new heart. Leona's father stiffened. What do you mean, Pastor? What soul? The pastor's gaze didn't waver. The soul needs to rest, he repeated. That is all. Silence hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating in its implications. Meanwhile, across town, the senator sat alone in his study, gripping the armrests of his chair. This was a problem. His friend was asking too many questions, and for the first time, the lies weren't holding. He couldn't tell him the truth. Not about the donor, not about the women. Not about where the heart truly came from. In the quiet of dawn, Leona wakes from a dream again, her breath shallow, her skin damp with sweat. She had seen a woman, tall, regal, wrapped in Kent cloth, standing in a field of fireflies. The woman spoke in a language Leona didn't recognize, but somehow understood. You carry me. You must finish what I began. She's speaking in tongues, he tells the pastor later. But not the ones we know from church. It's older, deeper. The pastor nods solemnly. She's dreaming in the language of the ancestors. The heart she carries belonged to a woman who died with unfinished rites. Her spirit is restless. The night before, after the pastor had told him, Leona's father had sought help from a traditional healer deep in the countryside. The soul of the owner of the heart is not at peace. The healer listened, nodded slowly, and echoed the pastor's words. The heart carries more than blood, it carries a soul. Then he handed Leona's father a small pouch, a gift for protection and connection. Inside were cowrie shells, red soil, and a folded piece of cloth embroidered with symbols from their ancestral village. The cloth is not just a memory. It is instruction. The girl far away, she is being watched. She must move soon. Now, as Leona sits up, her father watches, clutching the pouch tightly. He doesn't yet understand what's happening to his daughter, but he knows the ancestors are stirring. I will make sure the senator pays for what he made my daughter go through. In the meantime, I will make him believe I have taken her to another doctor overseas. He will not get away with this. While Leona traced symbols in her dreams, halfway across the world in Brazil, Ayanda counted days by the sound of footsteps in the hallway. 2 years had passed. She could not call home, or write a letter. Not even a whisper from the wind that used to carry her mother's prayers. The senator and his wife, Madame Ginica, had stopped providing food to their families, while Ayanda and Maria planned their escape. She began to study, quietly, obsessively. She learned the language, memorized the guards' routines, watched how the locks clicked and the cameras blinked. She mapped the house in her mind, every hallway, every blind spot. They spoke in code, passed notes in laundry baskets, and practiced silence like it was a sacred art. Ayanda's hope became a weapon. If there was even the smallest chance of freedom, she would take it. She would escape. Back in Africa, Leona lies in bed, clutching the pouch from the healer. The embroidered cloth rests beside her. That night, the symbols begin to glow faintly. She dreams again. In the dream, she sees a girl, trapped, pacing, whispering to another woman. The girl's name echoes in the wind. Ayanda. A voice speaks from the fireflies. She carries the storm. You carry the map. Leona wakes with a start. She grabs the cloth and traces the spiral symbol. Beneath it, she finds a hidden stitch. An old dialect, a phrase she doesn't recognize. She takes it to the healer. It's a path, the healer says. A message. The ancestors are guiding her through you. Leona closes her eyes. She sees Ayanda again, this time clearer. She sees the hallway, the chute, the latch. She begins to sketch the symbols, guided by unseen hands. That same night, Ayanda finds the sketch tucked inside her pillowcase. It's not written in any language she knows, but the symbols are familiar. It's not from Maria. It's not from any of the girls. It's a symbol, spiral, bird, hand. Maria gasps. Maria whispers, this is old. My grandmother used to mark our doors with this spiral. It meant protection. Maria. Where did you get this? Ayanda whispers, it was left for me. Someone knows. Ayanda doesn't know how the message reached her. But she feels it, like someone is watching over her. Like someone is dreaming of her free. They begin to decode the cloth's message. The spiral leads them to the hallway where the cameras blink slowly. There's a 30-second blind spot. The bird points to the laundry chute, which empties near the outer fence. The hand marks a loose panel in the storage room. Behind it, a tunnel once used by workers. Ayanda's heart races. Someone is guiding us. Someone who sees. Across town, the senator's is in his study staring at an old photograph. A woman in traditional dress, her eyes fierce, her smile defiant. She had been a political activist, silenced before her time. Her organs were harvested quietly, her name erased from the records. She was supposed to disappear, he mutters. Not return. Yet across oceans, the ancestors whispered. One carried the heart. The other carried the storm. And when the symbols aligned, the path opened. Not through power but through memory. The night is quiet. The guards are distracted. Ayanda and Maria move like shadows, each step echoing the rhythm of the cloth's symbols. They reach the chute. Maria hesitates. Maria. If we fall, we break. Ayanda, softly, if we stay, we vanish. They slide down, land hard but alive. The tunnel is dark, but the spiral is etched on the wall, glowing faintly. They follow it. Ayanda and Maria crouch low, breath shallow, hearts pounding. The tunnel is narrow, damp, and lined with old stone. But the spiral symbol glows faintly on the walls, etched into the rock like a whisper from the past. Maria, panting, asking, where does it lead? Ayanda, touching the spiral, home. Or somewhere that remembers us. They crawl forward, guided by the symbols. A bird painted in faded ochre marks a fork. Left leads to a dead end, right to freedom. A handprint pressed into the mud signals a turn. Beneath it, a small pouch of herbs, left by someone long gone. The air grows warmer. The sound of water trickles ahead. They emerge into a clearing just beyond the compound's fence, hidden by tall grass and wild trees. Back in the compound, a guard checks the quarters. The beds are empty. The laundry chute is ajar. Panic spreads. Guards started shouting, "They're gone!" And a Brazilian woman furiously shouted, "Find them! Now!" But it was too late. While Ayanda and Maria run through the trees, barefoot, breathless but alive. It's now dawn, they are tired and thirsty from a distance. A small hut glows with firelight. A woman stands outside, humming an old song. She sees them. Ayanda collapses into the grass, tears streaming. Maria kneels beside her, clutching her hand. And so the daughters escaped, not through strength alone but through memory. They were both escorted by local authorities and a quiet network of healers and advocates, and boarded a plane bound for home. Their faces are tired, but their eyes hold fire. News spreads quickly. Headline: Senator and wife caught attempting escape on private jet. Subtext: Anonymous tip led to arrest at airport. Investigation underway. The tip came from Leona's father. He had watched the sly for years. He had seen his daughter suffer. And when the symbols aligned, he knew it was time. That night, Leona slept peacefully. No twitching. No whispers. No fireflies. She dreams again, but this time it's not Ayanda. It's the woman. The one whose heart she carries. She stands in a field of golden grass, wrapped in Kent cloth, her eyes soft, her smile radiant. She gently says, "Thank you." She places her hand over Leona's heart. Leona wakes up with tears on her cheeks, but they are not heavy. They are light. From that day, her spirit is at peace. Months later, Leona sets the table in her small home. Candles flicker. A pot of fried rice and chicken simmers on the stove. She places the embroidered cloth at the center, now framed, honored. There's a knock at the door. Ayanda enters, dressed simply, her eyes brighter than before. Leona smiles, "You made it." Ayanda hugging her, "We both did." They both laughed as they enjoyed the meal together. And somewhere, in the quiet between their words, the ancestors hum. The heart had carried a legacy. The cloth had spoken. The tunnel was remembered. And the daughters, once scattered, had returned. Not just to land but to tell the truth. And in truth they found peace. The motive of this story is to illuminate the power of ancestral truth, emotional healing, and spiritual justice, showing how the hidden pain of one woman became the catalyst for exposing corruption, restoring legacy, and reconnecting souls across borders. It's a tale of reckoning, remembrance, and release.